Mike, you got a copy?
Sure.
Yeah, I just tipped the side dump on the dike.
In the world of gold mining, every second counts. The unforgiving terrain, massive machinery, and tight schedules leave no room for error. For Tony Beets and his crew, a single mistake can mean thousands of dollars lost in gold production. Unfortunately, that's exactly what happened when a routine job took a dangerous turn. It started as an ordinary day at Paradise Hill. Mike Beets and his team were racing to reinforce the dike road at the settling pond, a crucial step to keep the wash plant running. But in their rush to get the job done, disaster struck. A 10-ton side dump truck, overloaded and struggling to make a tight turn, started to tip. The weight shift sent the back tire over the edge of the dike. Before anyone could react, the truck was left hanging precariously over a 15-foot drop, with nothing stopping it from plunging into the water below. Mike immediately assessed the damage, noting that the truck's frame had taken a serious hit. If the vehicle fell into the pond, the recovery would be much more complicated, potentially putting both the truck and their schedule in jeopardy. The crew had no choice but to attempt an emergency recovery before the situation got any worse. As the truck continued shifting, Mike knew they had to act fast. The first step was securing the truck in place to prevent further movement. He called for chains, hoping to stabilize the vehicle and pull it back onto the road. Positioning his 220 excavator carefully, he began the painstaking process of trying to lift the truck. But almost immediately, it became clear that the machine was struggling against the sheer weight of the vehicle. The chains stretched under the immense tension, but the truck refused to budge. "This isn't working," Mike muttered, frustration creeping into his voice. He needed more power. Thinking quickly, he brought in a 480 excavator, a much larger machine capable of lifting 20 tons. With both excavators working together, he believed they had a real shot at getting the truck back on solid ground. "I'm going to have to make this a twin process," Mike decided. "If I can flip it, we'll be okay. I just need to find the right spot to lift." But despite his careful maneuvering, the weight of the truck proved too much. The machine simply couldn't generate enough force in the limited space available. "I just don't have enough power to do this the way I want," he admitted. "It's too much weight, and I don't have room to work." One possible solution was to detach the trailer, which would reduce the weight significantly. However, that process was complicated and would take valuable time they didn't have. As Mike struggled to find a solution, constant interruptions made it even harder to focus. "It's hard to think of solutions when I'm constantly getting interrupted," he snapped in frustration. "I don't even know if we have enough chains to do what I want." Eventually, he had to accept the reality of the situation. There was no quick fix. With no way to safely recover the truck immediately, work came to a grinding halt. For Tony Beets, the delay was a serious blow. His only operational wash plant had already been shut down to focus on rebuilding the dike road. Now, with the truck accident adding to the chaos, no gold was being sluiced at all. By the time Tony arrived on the scene, he was already frustrated with the lost production time. Surveying the damage, he wasn't impressed with Mike's initial efforts. "Clueless. Absolutely clueless," he muttered. Mike had managed to remove the trailer from the pit to prevent further damage, but the main problem, the truck itself, remained. When Mike suggested pulling the entire truck out in one go, Tony immediately dismissed the idea. "You'll never do that," he said flatly. "That is stupid." Instead, Tony insisted on a more controlled approach, separating the truck from the trailer and recovering them individually. The first step was to remove the metal pin connecting the two, which required precise execution. With his team in position, Mike carefully maneuvered the excavators while the crew worked to detach the pin. The tension in the air was palpable. "You good?" Mike asked one of the crew members. "Yeah, we got it," came the reply. With the truck and trailer now disconnected, they were ready for the next phase. The first challenge was flipping the 20-ton semi-truck back onto its wheels. With the chain secured, Mike carefully applied pressure with the excavator, pulling steadily. The truck resisted at first, but then suddenly started to move. But just as it was about to tip upright, something went wrong. The vehicle swung dangerously, nearly colliding with Mike's excavator. "Hold on," Tony shouted. "I don't like that. Bring her back." Mike quickly adjusted his bucket for extra leverage, narrowly avoiding disaster. "That was cutting it a little close," he muttered under his breath. Tony, however, remained unfazed. "I knew exactly where it was going to land," he said with confidence. With the truck now safely upright, it was time to tackle the trailer. This process went more smoothly, and before long, both pieces of equipment were back on solid ground. Back to business. After nearly 2 days of delays, the truck was finally operational again. But the job wasn't finished yet. Mike and his team still needed to raise the culvert and complete the dike to ensure the settling ponds were ready for sluicing. Despite the frustration, there was a silver lining. Miraculously, the truck and trailer had sustained no major damage, and all the necessary equipment was still intact. No major damage, no broken equipment, just a couple of loads of gravel and some time lost, Mike reflected. End of the day, we're back in business. With the pumps running again and gold production resuming, the operation was back on track. But the lesson was clear: in the unforgiving world of mining, even the smallest mistakes can lead to massive consequences. For Tony Beets and his crew, the incident was a reminder that there's no room for error when millions of dollars in gold are on the line. Now, with the crisis behind them, it was time to refocus on what really mattered: sluicing as much gold as possible before the season ran out. This week, Tony Beets has been operating at a reduced capacity, running only a single wash plant, his trommel at Paradise Hill. Despite the slowdown, he remains determined to reach his season goal of 5,000 ounces of gold. To stay on track, his crew needs to recover approximately 200 ounces each week. As the weigh-in begins, the numbers steadily rise: 80, 90, 100, before finally stopping at 143.58 ounces. The haul is worth over $350,000, but it falls short of the target. Though the result is disappointing, Tony knows every ounce counts. While acknowledging that a higher yield would have been ideal, he accepts the reality of the situation. Any gold recovered is still a step forward, and the revenue is essential to keep the operation running.